All right, coming at you from the chilly Midwest.
Chilly. But you know what? That's how we like it. And it puts a little hair in your chest, makes it easier to breathe once you get, used to it. But yeah, it's a nice, cool, brisk day here in Overland Park, Kansas. It's November 21st, the year. Yeah, it's 2024. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to Crushing Iron Podcast. This is episode 816.
Yeah. And do you consider yourself Midwest? Or is that mountain-ish?
We are Midwest.
You're Midwesterners over there?
Yeah, I don't know. I think 816 is actually a local area code, too. I'm still holding tight to the 615. Yeah, I could think Kansas is Midwest.
Yeah.
We're Central Time.
Yeah, a lot of Midwest. I don't know.
Love me some Midwest. People are just nicer here, as I've found.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about Midwest. I always think about that sometimes. I'm like, Midwest? I guess we're...
Define the middle of the West.
Because, Ohio kind of considers himself Midwest, too. So...
Yeah, I'm not...
They must have been
just
changing it when they're in the, the buggy.
Well, whoever came up with the term Midwest.
Well, so we're almost to the West.
It had to have been someone on the East Coast that was like, yeah, in order to get to Kansas, you go towards the middle of the country like you're going west.
Yeah.
You go directionally middle of the country, Midwest. But
the West kept evolving as they, the gold rush type of thing.
Right, and that's the problem. Like,
it's like we're in the Midwest, well, maybe
California.
Not.
Yeah, just go check out. If you say from California, you're gonna say, yeah, just go Middle East. It's not gonna fly. People are like, what are you talking about? So we gotta. I don't know where the Midwest came from, and the fact that Ohio's in no man's land. It's not the South. It's definitely not the Northeast. But Midwest, I don't know that flies with me. I think Ohio is just kind of stuck where Ohio is, and they just kind of they have to like latch on to whatever they can.
I'll take Ohio. There's some badasses in Ohio.
We'll take them, but it's just geographically, I don't know that it sinks in with me.
Well, back in the day when I was playing a lot of traveling softball, I'll never forget this. I think at least best, because it was competitive level. It wasn't just some janky shit, but we played in some tournaments in Ohio. There's a lot of great athletes in Ohio, man. I can tell you that right now. They say it's the sixth best football recruiting state or something like that. But I think it's just people would be surprised. There's a lot of people there for one, but
I know there's a lot of people there.
There's really. Yeah,
I'm not talking about the inventory in Ohio. I'm talking about geographically where it's located. But anyway, we digress. We don't need to.
Really,
too much.
It boils down to
geographical knowledge here. We're going to get geographical splained here. I can tell you right now via email or from the Facebook group, we're going to have a lot of people come in and educate us on our lack of knowledge when it comes to why Ohio is considered the Midwest.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot easier for me if I just embrace the New York and LA elitists and call myself a flyover state. That just rubs me so wrong, man.
It's true. We're just sitting here in the middle of America.
Nobody knows.
That's right. Just sitting here, just a pitiful old flyover states. But anyway, we digress. Hopefully we aren't a flyover podcast for you today. We got a nice little topic for you. And if it's your first time tuning in today, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the Triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. Times are valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open and honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We also like to talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner-level athletes looking for their first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite-level amateurs trying to get back to our championships, and everyone in between from all over the globe. And we use a feedback loop we have with them and Training Peaks, emails, text messages, and like to drive the discussion today. We also like to go in and utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question. We'll let you right in. Awesome people, fantastic community, solid resource in a sport that is oftentimes being way too complicated and way over way too confusing. It is a nice, safe, actionable space to get great information from experienced veterans that have been on the block. We've made all the mistakes, and they're willing to lend you a helping hand and giving you advice and their experience. Hopefully, like to avoid the ones we've all had. And that is it. We don't do sponsors, we don't do ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
It's been a couple weeks, I think. Tad rusty on that one, I think.
I'm a little rusty. I need to get back. It's off season.
It's okay.
Right? It's off season. Like today's was like a stride. You know, like the last
me reading
episodes have been like doing the easy run. It's off season. I'm not trying to do like a lot of threshold work here. I'm not trying to like really nail, and perfect the intro. But I can tell because, I mean, the topic of today is identifying deficiencies. I've been a little bit too lazy with the intro lately. I perfected it. Some of them are borderline fantastic, and the ones the last few weeks have been a little stale. So this is a good highlight experience for me. An opportunity for growth, as we said at swim camp last week. I need to get back to the intro and be consistent with it, because that is an area that I think I'm letting slide. So I got to get back on that train next week. I'll practice over the weekend. I'll be smooth. Do a few intro strides this weekend, maybe a little bit interval work, and I'll be ready to go next week. But yeah, just identifying deficiencies in my intro delivery.
Yeah, I mean that definitely sounded like me reading that thing. Would have been stumbling all over hell.
Well, to be fair, it's also frequently determined by the amount and the timing of the caffeine that I've had in the morning. So if I'm an early riser and I get my first cup of coffee in me, and then I'm kind of like weaning things off as the morning goes, that's usually my best effort. That's usually when I can just cruise it. Zone 2, great delivery, articulating in a great way. I'm enunciating precisely. If I get a little bit of a late start and have an early cup of coffee, and then I go and do a few workouts, and then I start to work, and next thing you know, I'm like, you know what? Let me get a little half cupper. Give me a little half cupper before the podcast starts, which is what I did today. Next thing you know, I'm trying to go zone 2. My vocal cords and my tongue are like zone 5 because they're all caffeinated, and I can't keep up. And so really it just comes down to the delivery and the timing of my caffeine. So I think what I'll do over the weekend is I'll probably start doing like some micro dosing for like some carbohydrates. And I think if I can get 90, 100, 120 grams per second for the delivery, I think I should be able to keep my glycogen stores topped off, and I can deliver a perfect intro. So next week, that is my goal, and I promise to work on my deficiencies over the weekend.
Wow, you just turned the intro into science.
I'm telling you, it is science.
Like, wow.
It's a lot of science. But anyway, so yeah, speaking of deficiencies, and that was a great segue from you being in the news, but we talked about it a little bit earlier this week, and when we talked about swimming and highlighting deficiencies, and we talked about it the last couple of weeks. I mean, I think it's on, I won't say it's on everyone's mind, but it is, it is on athletes' minds that are finishing up 2024. And they want to do better in 2025. And I think one of the main reasons you see a lot of people struggle this time of year is they just struggle with lack of direction. And it's not necessarily lack of direction and volume and maybe even intensity, but it's precisely where within the 3 disciplines, like how do we define, and I don't even define is the right word. How do we identify what our weaknesses are? Because I think a lot of this comes down to a lot of athletes think that they're deficient in a certain area, and they're not, or they're not nearly as deficient in the area that they think they are, but they have a much larger deficiency in other areas. So going back to what we talked about Tuesday, is they continue to create this gap, right, between what they're capable and able to do in this circumstance or scenario with this muscle group or this system than the other. And so a great way to identify those is just to spend, and I think this is actually a really fun way to break up the off season, because you're not having like this. And again, I think a lot of people rebel during the off season because they rebel against structure. And racing is, outside of like the turkey trots and the 5Ks and 10Ks, like racing is just far away, right? So you got two forms of rebellion and maybe procrastination or lack of urgency, where you're like, all right, look, I don't have any races coming up, so motivation is low. I've been super structured. I don't want to be on a super structured, regiment, and I don't want to get back into just a training groove just to train. So you kind of get stuck in no man's land. And when you're stuck in no man's land, you do a lot of nothing. And you're like, yeah, but I got the holidays. I got Thanksgiving coming up. We got travel. The kids are out of school. And then it's Christmas, right? And I got all this stress and this travel. It's like, what's the point of getting in a groove when I'm just going to have to stop it and start it and stop it and start it? There's no fun in that, because, again, athletes like to see continuous, consistent greens and training peaks or training platform use. No athlete likes to start something knowing in 6 days they're going to see a 2 or 3 day period where they're probably going to have a much less likelihood to be successful. No one likes that, right? So instead of just waiting until January, I think a great way, and I've done this with a few athletes already, and I think it's a great opportunity for all athletes, whether you're a coach or self-coach, to not make every week a race week, but make it an identifying week. So if you want to find, your deficiencies or where you have the biggest gaps in improvement across all three, and maybe even also in like the strength department, now is a great time to do it, because you don't have to train it because you want to do these rested. So like swimming, you might want to do a CSS test, right? Or you can do a 400 all out and a 200 all out, get your critical swim speeds pace, but also you can see and identify what's my pace for the 400 free, and then what's my pace for 200 free, right? If I have a really, really, really fast 200 free, and let's say it's like a 140 average pace, and then when I do the 400, it's a drop off to a 200, then we know that we need to work on our muscular endurance. We need to work a little bit longer stuff. Conversely, if you go out and you do your 200, 400 free, and they're the exact same time, we have no top end, right? And you probably have to work on long. So we're identifying gaps, right? You want to go to cycling. You can do an easy like battery of tests and up to identifying where these weaknesses are. And again, you might have 2 or 3, but the important part is to, like, when you're going to invest time, invest it into something that's going to have the biggest return. So you could do a quick, like maybe a 5 to 10 second all out, do a couple of those, do a 2 to 3 minute all out, do a 4 to 6 minute all out, and then a few, obviously not the same day, but back-to-back days. And then you can do something as simple as, a 10 to 12 minute all out. And then what you can do from that is you can just take that profile of how you did, in a very glycolytic state, doing your 5 to 10, 12 second all out efforts, maybe even 20, see where you kind of rank on the profile, and then see where, if that's like, and this is a cycling like road race term, but say you have like a Cat 2 1 minute effort, but you have a Cat 5, 20 minute effort. Then you can kind of see, like, between those two, which ones you need to work on the most. You could also do some, I think it was probably 2 months ago, 3 months ago, we talked a lot about durability and resistance, or in resiliency in training. There's a lot of easy cycling workouts you can do to test, quote unquote, overall durability. So how long you can maintain X speed, and then retest that over again. See how well you're doing. See how not well you're doing. Again, do I need to work on my VO2 max? Do I need to work on my steady state? Do I need to work on my aerobic threshold? And that, I think it's a crucial piece of information to have this time of year, because you're doing the same thing in running, right? You can do your 400, your 800, you can do a 1 mile, a 5K, and a 10K, right? And just kind of figure out, all right, where if my 5K and my 10K times are exact paces or exactly alike, then I know I need to work on, probably do like a little extreme polarization approach where I'm doing a lot of VO2 work, so I'm really working on my mile, and then I need to go longer. And maybe you need some interval training. So there's a lot of those things you can weave in there. And yes, they're quote unquote tests, and athletes have a really difficult time, I think, embracing a quote unquote test, because they get performance anxiety and they feel like they're going to fail. But it's just about measuring where you are and giving you. And here's the thing, is that even if you don't measure and test perfect, at least you've got yourself a carrot for the next 2 to 3 months. Like, you don't want to go through the next, into Q4 and the beginning of Q1 carrotless. You got nothing out there. You got nothing to shoot for, because doing work is still important. It's still better than doing no work at all. Yes, you still want to do the right work, but sprinkle these things in the next few weeks. Like, add a few things. Again, you can take a rest day one day, the next day you're doing some swim, testing, then like an easy swim or run. The next couple of days, you maybe do some bike testing, and like keep it fun and engaging. Get some really good actionable information during this period of time that's already kind of choppy, right? A couple of days are great, a couple of days aren't. Travel, holidays, holiday parties, kids out of school, consistency, kids back in school, kids out of school, back to the holidays, New Year's. It's like just things are really choppy. So people have a really hard time being motivated when they know things aren't going to be smooth. So embrace the choppiness, okay? Embrace the choppiness, add a few things in there, take some rest periods, try to get some information, right? Maybe even use this November, December period as more of an exploratory period of training to where let's find some actionable intel on where I am as an athlete, where I am as a swimmer, where I am as a cyclist, where I am as a runner. If I'm doing strength training mobility work, where are my deficiencies in being flexible and stable? Where are my deficiencies in, when I strength train? Am I feeling it more in my quads or feeling more in glutes? Like all this information is fantastic because then you can map out a nice period and a nice initial training block to start the year, January, February, March, right? When you're focused mostly on base work. And so you didn't waste November, December. You got actionable information, and now you're able to start the year with a plan, a purposeful plan with great information, with great intel, just like you want, versus you don't do anything, and you don't want to waste January 1st and the first 2 weeks like doing testing because, one, you're going to feel way detrained because you probably haven't done anything, and then you're going to feel rushed already. So take this opportunity to highlight some to maybe highlight some lowlights.
Yeah, I liked what you said about exploratory training because I do think that, those kind of things are great and everything. And I wonder about testing. Like, yeah, it gets a kind of a weird name about it, right? It's not like really a test. It's just kind of exploring and seeing where your weakness is. And I kind of get the sense that a lot of people sort of know where their weaknesses are generally. And it just seems like sometimes that, like I will occasionally drag up a piece of thing I wrote. I used to journal a lot. I still do, but every once in a while I'll come across an old one and I'll read that shit and I'll be like, damn, I was saying the same shit then. I'm still saying it, It's sort of like you kind of know, and you really know. It's just a matter of really opening yourself up to facing it and actually following through with certain things. And I think you're right, man. It's like you can tell, you just do a few body weight exercises or whatever, and I'm weak here or whatever. I can tell me if I'm doing a lot of push-ups and stuff like that I just feel a little bit better. So it's just interesting because to me, the whole catch becomes, it's like, all right, I think we all kind of know some of our weaknesses, and they're weaknesses for a reason. It's because usually we kind of avoid them. And how do you get over the hump? And maybe a testing thing is a good way to get over the hump and just sort of like embrace the challenge from a different perspective or something, because we know, it's like playing basketball growing up, most of us have a weak left hand, but it's just, you don't like working on it because it's weak. So how do you get to the mental spot where you're like, you enjoy doing it? And I think that unfortunately that means you got to go through kind of an extended period of working on something like that, whether it's your, top end on the bike or just your aerobic. I mean, for me, it's always more work aerobically, I think, because I just kind of cave in, or at least I have the last few. Probably racing more is another weakness of mine. But I'm getting old, man. My weakness is I'm getting old,
dude. You're pacing yourself. Like, and
pacing.
You don't.
Well, that is true.
You don't live in a very race heavy state, right? You're just a flyover state. There's not much going on there.
Just a few
but
things.
no, I know it probably seems like we're beating a dead horse, like, because we talked about this on Tuesday, but this is the time of year to do it. And I think taking that time, and again, if you need, and here's the thing, is I don't know that a lot of people want to put the thought into, because that's my problem really with a lot of training plans, is that there really is no like period of identifying what kind of athlete you are, and like really looking like, inside the athlete to figure out how they're wired. Like, where are they getting the majority of their energy? What are they burning the most? Like, this is the most crucial piece of training, is figuring that out, and figuring out like how exactly someone, because you could think the total opposite of someone, and then you could believe one, and then you get testing results, and you're like, it's the total opposite. And so if you think about how crucial a time investment is with athletes, because we're age groupers, we don't have 30 hours a week. For a pro, if you're training 25, 30 hours a week, you can do a lot of your stuff wrong, but you're still doing so much of it that you're going to get the answer is going to end up being right. It just is, because you're doing so much. Not that they're not, scientific in their approach, but you get what I'm saying. On age groupers, like we have to be even more precise, because our margin for error in that precision, in that level of intensity, in that focus, in that specific block, in that specific discipline, it's so much less. Our room for error is 0. Right? We don't have 30 hours a week. You might have 8 to 10 to 11. So to think that you're going out and you're continuing to, again, create larger gaps or bigger deficiencies, because again, deficiencies don't necessarily mean getting weaker in area. It just means continuing to get stronger or more dominant in one specific area while the other one stays the same. You're creating the same gap. You're creating a larger gap, therefore creating a larger deficiency. And I think that's just something that we can't overstate enough, no matter what time of year it is being intentional with your training, being intentional with the intensity, being intentional with the duration. You can't just blindfold and throw darts and expect to hit a bullseye on race day. That doesn't work like that. Like, you have to take the time and look inside the athlete and do a few things to figure out, like, not just physically, but, mentally and emotionally. How are you wired? How do you tick? What gets you excited? What do you like? What do you don't like? And if you don't like something, why do you not like it? Because that's one of the most important things I like to hear from athletes, what they don't like. I don't like it. Why don't you like it? I don't feel like I'm any good at it. Okay, well, then we're going to do it. Because if you don't feel like you're good at it, then we know you've avoided it. And it's obvious you avoid it. Maybe it's like high cadence work. I hate high cadence work. Well, yeah, I know, because your total average cadence for a race is like 53. So of course you don't like high cadence work. So you know what? We're going to do it, because it's about making you a better all-around cyclist, making your neuromuscular pattern more efficient. Right? I hate doing hills. Okay, well, we're going to do them. I'm just not good at them. You're not good at them because you avoid them. Like, again, you can never be good at something that you avoid. I hate going easy. Okay, well, then here's what I'm going to tell you. Then you're going to leave a lot on the table by only wanting to do one kind of work. We can do it, and if you're Johnny Go Hard and you're Mr. West, the Weekend Warrior, and all you want to do is hammer out, races, here and here and here and here, and you're just getting, especially if you're just getting the sport, and you don't have any aerobic base, and that's fine. You'll continue to up your 3-minute, 5-minute, maybe even 20-minute power. But when it comes to what you're able to hold for like 2 and 3 hours, you're going to create the largest, glycogen depleted state so quickly you will never be able to keep up with it. You just won't. So you can, again, that's about creating gaps. It's about highlighting deficiencies, but then just shining a bigger light on them because you're not working on them. And I just hate doing zone 2. I get it. I don't know that. I mean, there's very few athletes I like that really love it, right? Everybody likes to, and there's ways you can break up zone 2 work, right? To still get the benefit of it. But if you don't like it, it probably means you need more of it because we haven't done enough and you haven't done enough. But once you do it, you see the benefit of it. And that, I think that's one of the most difficult things that coaches have to deal with is especially with age group athletes, because this is a hobby, right? Professional athletes treat this like it's their profession. It is. It's their job. So they might not like zone 2 work, but they see the benefit of it. They might not like all out VO2 max intervals, but they see the benefit of it. It's their job. They do it. Just like you show up to work every day. There's parts of your job you love, and there's parts of it you hate, but you can't just clock on Friday and be like, hey man, I know you wanted me to do like these 2 presentations and these 2, TPS reports, but I just didn't want to do them. It's just not my thing. It didn't work like that, right? So professionals have to do them. Age group, and again, they do so much volume they can get away with even mistakes, but age group athletes, we have so much less wiggle room. Yet we're the ones that are like, I don't really like it. It's not my thing. I'm more of a high quality guy. 2 bike workouts a week, 3 track workouts, that is my jam. Like, that's probably your jam. That's probably your foot's jammed in a boot. 20 weeks out of the year and why you haven't progressed in long course for the last 3 years. Like these are the facts. And so if you don't, again, figure out who you are, not who you think you are, right? The proof's in the pudding, and measure things, then you won't know. And getting in like the most age group, that's why it's so tough, right? Because most age group athletes, they don't want to take the time to do these things. They don't want to slow down. But guess what? Right now it's slow. Right now it's slow.
Yeah. It
is slow. There's no races. There's 5Ks. There's 10Ks. You can do this if you've been training, you can do this a drop. You can do it on a Tuesday. You don't need a race. Like a Wednesday morning, I feel good. Where there's 35 degrees, no wind, low dew point, low humidity, sunny outside, nobody's on the road, no ice, I'm blasting one. It's really that simple. And figuring it out, and then, okay, I'm going to do a 1 mile. I might do this. Maybe I'll, and on the flip side, because I know I've been mostly talking about like hard stuff, maybe right now is like, remember I did this when the first time I moved to Kansas. I read this book, and I was just all about heart rate and heart rate drift, pace to heart rate ratio, power to heart ratio. And so what I did was I took, and then again, great time of year to do this, right? Because weather's pretty stable. Pace, I wouldn't say is less stable, just as it has a lack of stability like it does in like August, because it might not be super hot, but it sometimes can be like 25-mile-an-hour wind. So it's hard to do pace. But you can do something as easy as, all right, every Sunday for the next 4 weeks, I'm going to go out and I'm going to run at 145 heart rate for 45 minutes to an hour. And I want to see what my average pace is. And then what you want to see at the end is your PA, I think it's a semicolon, HR on your training peaks. Like what's the difference in my heart rate drift and my pace, right? So if your heart rate continues to rise and your pace lowers, there's highlighting an area of deficiency. And you can look at that and see where that happened on the chart. Like that happened in the last 10 minutes. Did it happen like, minute 30? How did that feel? Next week, do the exact same thing. Next week, do the exact same thing. Next week, do the exact same thing. And then what you should see over time is your ability to hold that pace and that same heart rate for longer. More durable, more efficient. You could also do something as simple as, all right, I'm going to wake up this morning. I'm going to have some electrolytes, had a good breakfast, or had a good dinner last night, and go out and do something as, I'm going to go out and run zone 1 heart rate or low zone 2 heart rate. And I'm going to see how long I can go before I feel like, I'm having like an insulin spike and I need some sugar. That's also a really great no lab, exploratory thing you can do to figure out like how glycogen dependent are you? Like, and that you can't do it by having like, 2 packets of oatmeal and a banana peanut. Like you just spiked your insulin already. Now within like 45 minutes, you're going to be craving some more. So do these things to figure out like, how am I wired right now? And is that problematic, or am I good? And if it's good, then move on. Continue again, keep what's been working, ditch what hasn't. I had this discussion with an athlete at swim camp before we even started. We were just catching up over lunch, and they talked about how they were just like going way down the high carb, high sugar rabbit hole before they did this Ironman in the middle of the year. And they put on 10 pounds, and they feel like they were inflamed 24/7, and they just never could feel good. But they were like, I just felt like I was so dependent, and my body was always, I couldn't do anything. And I don't think it's any surprise why I didn't do so well on race day. All right. So if you've allowed your body to become that so metabolically inflexible, then maybe this time of year is to spend time making it more flexible. Again, like that, you don't need to go to a lab. Yes, you can go to a lab and figure out, where the exact, pace and heart rate to where things become more dependent. But if, for age group athletes who don't have that time, or maybe don't want to spend the money, or know that if they do it once, they're not going to go back every month or every 6 weeks to retest, to recalibrate their zones. Just go and test something like this, or hop on the bike. Because I've always found that glycogen depletes quicker on the bike than it does when you run. And you might be able to last an hour and 15, hour and 20 for an easy run. But if you hop on your trainer going for like 30 or 40, you might feel your sugar like just tanking. Again, highlighting an area to maybe work on, right? Or, and that's, I know that's like the flip side of what most people are shoving down people's throats right now, literally and figuratively, is, oh, well, that's, you just need more, but again, I, whatever direction you want to go, we support it, but think about, your overall health when you do stuff like that. But again, like these are all easy things, right? That you can do to identify and to make it fun and to break it up and to kind of, again, embrace the choppiness that is this time of year and find ways to maximize the opportunity. Again, just like we said, so when it comes to the meat of the year, you're not wasting a single session. You don't have any sessions to waste. You got 8 to 10 hours a week to work. That's it. You waste 2 sessions. That's a fifth of your workout week that you're wasting by being inefficient. You have to work with precision at this level. And I mean this level, like this level of availability. Right? You can't afford to swing at a pinata blindfolded. You got to be the sniper. You can, and that's most age groupers are the 6-year-old kid that just snorted like 6 gallons of Pop Rocks, put the blindfold on and is swinging at the pinata hoping they hit it. And then when they do, they finally hit it. It's black licorice. Total fail, right? Black licorice, worst candy ever. Or you could be about precision. But who wants to be the sniper that's precision, who waits, like 2, 3, 4 days, no food, and then makes one shot and that's it? Like that's how you have to act. That's how you have to prepare as an athlete. But most don't. They just, most athletes this time of year and how they plan their early part of the year just plan to exercise erratically and hope something sticks. But then when race day, and then it's funny, right? Because when race day comes, they want to overanalyze and analyze all the erratic exercising that they did leading up to it, and then be data driven and pick it apart with a fine tooth comb and a pair of tweezers, like they've been the mad training scientists the last 6 to 8 weeks. Can't do it. You got to measure things, map things out, execute, look for deficiencies, look to close the gap on those, rinse, repeat, and get better. But it takes time. And again, this is a low barrier time of year to be able to highlight those and then take the time to do them across all 3 sports, right? Or in the kitchen, or in how metabolically inflexible or flexible you are, right? Or in the gym. Like just find, and all if that sounds daunting, and it can, just pick one. Just pick one. Because it's still going to allow you to see some improvement over the course of the first part of the year.
Yeah, I've been doing these interviews with some of our coaches and asking them some questions, and those are in our Facebook group and on the YouTube page. But yesterday I was talking to Parker Watt, and I actually asked him what his I don't know what the exact question was. Something about what are you going to focus on in this off season to try and get better, and he was talking about he said immediately he's going to probably he's going to be kind of focused on the bike. So, but it was more in turn of how to ride better so he can run better. And one of the things he said was he's typically a high cadence guy in races. And I think he said something like 90 or whatever. And so he wants
he's like 90, 92.
Yeah. He wants to kind of work on getting a little more, maybe because he said he was also watching our interview with Glenn, and how Glenn is completely a big gear guy, slow cadence guy. And so he was talking about how he wanted to kind of work more muscular endurance and maybe a little bigger gear or something like that, and work on going, it's sort of lower, but maybe how to land in the middle. And I thought that was an interesting comment. It's sort of like, you can't just turn yourself off, because I said, well, you're going to work on that. You're still going to do 90. He's like, well, maybe if we can just do 88 or something like that. I mean, those little, for a guy like him, little things like that are going to matter. I kind of joked with him because he went, 934 at Kona, and he got 86th in his age group. I was laughing about that.
Right. No, it's wild.
I gave him some shit about that, but he also said, and you were talking about it, sometimes, like the pros, for example, will just, just lob on, layers and layers, and it's almost impossible for them to do as much as they do and not be able to overcome certain things. And we were talking about how, as in his high school days, and like you probably, he's swimming 10,000 yards a day, and if you can do that, if you can find time for that, you're going to be a better swimmer, or you better be. There's just like, there's so many of these things, and like you're talking about the sniper piece, and it's like, it's like these pros a lot of times are just spraying everywhere and hoping something hits, and they're just working out all the time. Or a lot of people, not even necessarily pros, people with a lot of time, and they just like to ride 5 hours on every weekend or something like that. You're just naturally going to be kind of, good at things, and your margin for error is going to be smaller because you just put in so much work. And in your case is like, if you can really zero in on these things, and like what came to mind when Parker said that about his cadence, and because I know a lot of people who have power on both pedals, and they're always trying to get it equal and all that shit. And I've seen tons of, I watched tons of interviews with some coaches from like the tour, and a lot of them are just saying like, look, your one side's going to be stronger, and to waste all your time trying to get that perfectly even is a waste of time, because it's just not worth the time. But you can, like Parker said, kind of squeeze it up a little bit. You know what I mean? So if you want to close the gap, I think that's it's kind of a gray area kind of goal, but I find those things interesting. It's like, if you can get your left side a little closer, but to try and get it perfectly even, I think is a wasted attempt for a lot of things. Swimming's the same way for me. It's like, there's no way my left side's going to ever be as strong as my right in the water. I mean, I could work on it all day, every day.
I can tell you right now, it's not.
Yeah.
I've been watching you swim for 11 years.
Exactly. You know what I mean? But like, I think if I can just make my left arm a little bit better, that's a win, right? So
right.
I think that the reason I bring that up is because I think that can be a daunting task for people if they're trying to get the same power on your left side as your right side, and you're always, thinking about your weak leg and trying to bring it up even. That's kind of a lost effort, man, for a lot of people, I think. And I think we all do that. I do that in running as well, as my right leg is always going to carry more burden, but maybe it's just that I spend more time unlocking my hip on the right side, so it doesn't get like twice as tight. And then it just, because that continues to create the same problem over and over. I think it's one thing to take a little burden off on one side, but it's another to try and make it equal. I mean, especially as you get older, like me, it's like, what am I going to do? Just do one-legged left leg squats for all day, just to try and catch up for 60 years? I just don't think it's reasonable.
Well, hey, I love that you brought up Parker, because he's actually a great example. So and this is a good example in like talking about deficiencies, and then I had something else to say about swimming. But so when, I don't know, it was like maybe 8 or 12 weeks out from Kona, I put Parker through some cycling and some run testing to kind of figure out where our deficiencies were. And then, because obviously like he's already a 930 guy, he's already fast. So it's like, what you can keep doing what's worked. You can find like a little bit of effort in one area that might raise things up, because it's all about time, right? Our investment in time. So we did some run and bike testing, got some results. Easily the best run shape he's ever been. If he was chalking up like 1.5 marathons in the 120s in training. I mean, just it was unbelievable. And I think he would admit, like, we got him in the best running shape he's ever been in. Cycling shape kind of stayed a little more efficient in my opinion, but definitely room for improvement. And I think the area on that piece to highlight is you can't also try to fix, especially in cycling and running, you can't expect to try to fix 4 deficiencies at the same time. Because again, in our effort to try to get better, and you're going to do this for a long period of time, you have to know what works and what doesn't work, right? It's like, I guess the best analogy I give is like, it's like telling someone go on an elimination diet because they have some kind of whatever. Well, they don't tell you, all right, eliminate these 40 things first, because you got no idea was it 7 things you gave up? Was it all 40, or was it 1? And What also can happen, like if you eliminate, let's say 10, all right, keep it reasonable. You eliminate 10 things from your diet all at once, and all of a sudden, this one piece of what you want to get better improves. Well, it might have just come from the fact that you just needed to remove one thing, but now if you're not eating 2 through 10, now do you have deficiencies? From maybe the vitamins and minerals you would have been getting from them, but you eliminated 10, so now you don't know which one it is. You have to work your way backwards. That's why they would say, like, start with one, see what happens, because you have to know what works and what doesn't. You have to know what the culprit is. So when you identify and spend time working on deficiencies, and you and I get this a ton as athletes or as coaches, I just want to do it all at once. And like, you can't do it all at once. One, like, you can't up running intensity and up biking intensity and up swimming intensity and expect not something to suffer, right? Because you can't go as hard. Pick one. Like I always use the kind of the visual of like the training being like that whack-a-mole game at the arcade. One deficiency pops up, slam it down. Then another one pops up somewhere else, slam it down. If they all pop up at once, guess what? You still got one hammer. You can't hit them all. So pick one and work on it. So with Parkley, we focused. We knew the running was going really, really, really well. So we just hammered it down the running. And now in the off season and early next season, we can work on cycling. But now we've at least unlocked something that we know works to really improve and really get him to peak well for the run. Now we do the same thing with cycling, right? Figure that out, but you can't do that while also trying to do something else. And that's where athletes get so impatient, is they want to do it all at once. But you can't, because again, going back to like the 10, the 8 to 10 to 12 hours, maybe sometimes like 13 to 14, like you don't have that much time. So if you're doing 12 hours a week and all of a sudden you want to try to figure something out one area, you're upping intensity and lowering volume, like you're going to be crushed. And then here's the thing is, if you're upping the intensity too much in one of the areas, then what you're trying to do in the other discipline isn't going to be nearly as meaningful. They're either both going to suffer or one of them is going to suffer because you can't go as hard as you need to go to get the result that you're looking for. So you're compromising everything. And I think that's probably the best word to describe most athletes is they're in a constant state of compromise. But I just like it this way. I'm not willing to compromise slowing down for knowing I'm going to get better in June, right? I just like to go hard on the bike, so I'm okay compromising my ability to up my run speed and threshold because I can't really go hard enough because I'm always in a fatigue state because I always go hard on the bike. You're just compromising. Well, I know I'm not willing to compromise on my Monday and Wednesday swims where I just swim 2K straight. I need to get out of the water. I'm not willing to compromise that. Okay, well, then you'll keep being slow and we're the last out of the water. Like, it's all about compromise. And most athletes are willing to compromise into that level all the time versus, you know what? I'm willing to compromise my love or my hate for a specific type of training or discipline of the three this time of year to focus on an area of my training that is currently compromised. I know my run is compromised. I know it is the weak link in the chain, but gosh, I love to swim and bike. Well, you know what? Take a break for a bit. Focus on the run. Highlight that, because you can't, like, again, when you do three sports, everything is connected. It's your body doesn't have a swim chamber, a bike chamber, and a run chamber. It just doesn't. It's all connected. And then the swim thing that came up when you were talking to me about, finding like the left arm is like, whenever I give any swim advice in person, I could give you two pieces of advice that I think you really, really, really need to work on, that are just major deficiencies. But if they don't click for you and you can't see yourself focusing on that deficiency repeatedly, then it's pointless. I'm wasting my breath. I could highlight two areas that you really need to focus on, but if you're not going to be bought in and you can't see yourself continuing down the path of improvement and doing and knocking out the details that need to be knocked out to stay improved or to get improved, then what's the point? But if I get to a third one, that again might not be high on the list, right, of what we need to triage for your swim stroke, but you're like, oh, did I get that? I love that drill. I feel it. And in number one improves you by 40%. Number two improves you by 30%. And the third one I gave you will only improve you by 20%. but it's the one you're going to do. It's the one you're bought in on. You believe it. I can do this 3 times a week. I got this. Well, then guess what? You're going to improve 20%. But if I gave you and didn't give you that third one because you're like, oh, I'm at 40%, but you just got to do it. And you do it for a week. And the next week you do it like once. And the next week you're like, I don't really like that. Guess how much you can improve? 0. So again, find the deficiency, find the piece that you're bought in on, that excites you, that makes you want to get up and do the things that you haven't done in the past, that, makes you want to challenge yourself the ways that are making you uncomfortable, that you're weak at, that you're not really, that maybe might even like hurt your ego to do a little bit. Like, do those things, because, a rising tide lifts all boats. And that is exactly what it is. If you can raise that, then it's going to improve across the board. But don't be overzealous in the one that you think, oh, this is the game changer here, but you're not totally bought in, or you don't know how to do it. You don't know how to adapt it to your training. You can't do it for a long period of time. Then don't waste your time on it to start. Tackle the low hanging fruit and the low limbs before you go to the very, very, very top and try to find something else.
Yeah, man, I agree. I like to keep things simple, and we were going to have I don't think it was the name of the podcast, but something about where were you last year at this time or whatever. And when I think of that, a lot of people get done with the season and say, this off season, I want to work on X, Y, or whatever. And then we don't do it. So now I think about the off season in a weird way as sort of like, okay, what would you like to incorporate into your next season? And, a lot of times, for me, I've gone through the last couple seasons because of various injuries and like my wrist and stuff like that, as far as like push-ups, but like doing push-ups right now, I'm building that habit and I'm getting back into it. So, cause I want that to roll through next year. And maybe this is something, your glutes aren't as strong as you would like them. You're putting too much pressure on your hammies and your quads. Well, maybe it's just something as simple as, creating a lunge matrix every other day or something. And then something that you build a habit of that carries into the season. And that's, to me, or like rowing is what I'm doing too. I'm thinking, okay, I can't really swim out here. I could, that it's a real hassle to go into the city or go into town. But, so I'm just trying to get stronger in certain areas. And I think that's the thing too. Everybody, like you said about how I want to do it all, coach, or whatever, but like there's certain things that you can just build in if they become habits throughout your next training season that I think are going to really pay off, and it could be anything. But it doesn't have to be everything. It's sort of like I was saying about, I'm going to start reading more. So then you start reading like everything all day, every day. It gets overwhelming. But if you start working in a nice lunge routine, every other day, and then it just becomes a habit, I think that would be outstanding. I've always said that, my best running days were when I was doing yoga a lot. It just creates a foundation for me. So to pick something that seems attainable, that that you can kind of build a habit with and keep doing, I think that's a really good idea right now, because honestly, we can talk about a lot of stuff, but as we always say, this is the time of year, if we can just kind of keep people doing something, we're winning. To try and overload that can be daunting. I think they have, bears hibernate in the winter for a reason.
That's so true. Well, and I don't think it's any secret. Like, I would guess, like from the beginning of November to the start of January, like triathlon podcasts pretty much go on hibernation. Every 2 or 3 weeks, there's not as many guests. No one's racing. There's no race previews. There's no pro races. There's no Olympics. There's no PTO. Like, podcasts hosts be struggling. And it's no surprise, like for me or you, like this is the hardest time of year to come up with content, because again, like, athletes, because our podcasts are inspired by, our training, and they're inspired by our athletes' training. And off-season training just isn't that glamorous. Like we get inspired by, early season races and triumphs and obstacles and Ironman prep and victory and defeat and all these kind of things. And like, well, there's not that much going on. We talked about before we went live. It's like, it's hard. It's really hard. But we don't take off November, December because it's hard. we keep doing it. One, because we committed to doing it, but two, because we know if we tried to pick it up in January, and you talk about a struggling intro today, I wouldn't even know what to fucking say in January.
Yeah.
I had to come up with a brand new one. I'd be so out of practice. I wouldn't have it.
Yeah.
And then also, like, as we, not that our podcasts are gold, because a lot of times they're rhinestone, but as soon as we get rolling, it comes, right? Something comes up to mine, and we have a topic to discuss, and we have something that kind of resonates with either you or I personally, as humans or as coaches or as athletes ourselves, or also like with our athletes. That's the thing, is like, you just got to find something to do to get you moving, and once you start moving, it's done. And so, like, work on, again, I'm working on my delivery next week. Now I'm feeling like some performance anxiety welling up already.
Well, you need to stand in the mirror and say, if this is your first time listening,
right?
welcome.
Really.
Just repeat that sentence and then get it off.
It's all about putting the shoes on, right? It's all about the first 4 words out of the gate.
I am worthy. I am a good person. Hey, well, seriously, like, and I was just saying that about the lunges and stuff, but like, for me, I've asked a lot of people, and, most, I think, really good triathletes will tell you the core is a huge piece of this puzzle. Sit down and do like 20, 30 crunches a day. Just start building that habit and start getting your core work. Find a simple core thing that you can do. You don't have to do like an hour core work or Pilates every time you sit down, but just start building those types of things. I think, when you're watching TV or whatever, and those kind of things can really pay off. I just think it's, these nice little supplemental pieces that we can build habits with. And, then you start getting a stronger core, and then little things start feeling easier, Then you enjoy doing zone 2 work because you're just stronger.
And my biggest thing with that is, and we can close it out here, is like, the little easy things you do aren't supposed to feel really, 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 really hard. They're just supposed to make the easy things feel easier. And this is something I have to like really drive home to the athletes at this time of year, when you give them like, functional movements, and like you said, like the lunge matrix they do before workouts, or speed legs or mountain legs, or, mobility work. They're like, yeah, I just think it was hard enough. Like, we're not trying to enter like a deadlifting competition for Mr. Olympia here. Like, the goal isn't to transform you into a weightlifter. The goal is to make the easy stuff feel easier, and to be more durable when you do it. To make the way you move easier and more efficient. It's going to allow you to run easier. And if you do that, then you can run more. And if you can run more, then you'll get fitter. And if you can stay injury free, then you can run more, and then you'll get fitter, right? And if your economy is better, then your heart rate stays low and your pace stays faster, then you're going to get fitter. Like, they just look for everything as like it has to be an absolute. And I'm like, yeah, you should. And again, like as a triathlete, you shouldn't leave your workouts. Again, I think this quote, I can't remember who it was from, but I mentioned it a few months ago. I said, as a triathlete, endurance athlete, when you leave a strength training or mobility, you should feel better than when you went, not worse. And if you're feeling worse, you're doing too much damage. And like, you should feel things highlighted. You should feel deficiencies engaged, right? These are the things you should be, again, feeling when you do things, not, I'm going to the gym to do some supersets, bro, and I'm going to be shredded when I'm done. Okay, great. Well, check back with me next week when you can run again, and tell me how that got us better. But yeah, little things like that, again, that are not flashy, that might not be easy to get up for and do, but elicit like great responses and huge benefits for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see many power lifters coming across that tape first in Ironman.
No, you don't.
But, yeah, that's the thing, right? Just, this is a sport when you got to go a long time.
A long, long, long time. But no, I mean, again, like our thing is like, just find something, find one, identify it. And, and maybe even like, don't go for the one that, that you've been avoiding. Right. It's like, again, like going like the January 1st, like new year, new me. Like, I know I've struggled with 20 years with not giving up this specific item. Then don't make that the first thing on your priority list. Like, maybe chalk up like a few wins first. right? Maybe just chalk up a few. I'm not gonna have screen time for 30 minutes before I go to bed twice a week. Not every night, twice a week, right? Low hanging fruit here. Create some wins, create some momentum, and then once you've established the fact that you can, in fact, alter your own behavior, then adjust. Then maybe go swing for the fences. Then maybe go for the big thing that has been holding you back. Right, but get some small wins first before you start swinging for the fences.
Sounds good.
Always. Well, that's all we got this week. Hope you guys got something out of it. I know I did, as always. It's always a good message to you, but also to myself personally. As always, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. Check out our coaches tab. We have a lot of amazing coaches that are honestly really filling up their roster. We think we've as a community gained 50 something athletes since they came on board. So a lot of great results and a lot of great parts of our community are being expanded by adding new awesome people that are, again, getting great results from a variety of different coaches with a variety of different personalities and delivery, but the same C26 philosophy and coaching. So check those out. And if you want to look for them, Mike has done some amazing interviews with them to kind of give you a further insight into who they are and answering some questions. And so click through there, peruse. And if you don't know which one's right, just click on the tab, find the perfect coach. We'll help you out there. But as always, if you need anything from Mike, he's available. Mike at c26triathlon.com. If you need anything from me, I'm available. Robbie at c26triathlon.com.
All right, man. I will catch you next week.
Check you Tuesday, man.
All right. See you.
See you, dude.